Maybe you all have heard about an incident Sunday night, possibly the Oscars. Obviously, the slap. Everyone saw it. Everybody's talking about it. Millions of retweets. This is all people are talking about. Will Smith, though, has actually apologized with a very long statement on Instagram. It did include, this time, a direct apology to Chris Rock. We know he did not include an apology to Chris Rock when he made his acceptance speech on Sunday. So, apologizing to Chris Rock, but at this point, is it too little too late?
Is it too little too late? That's an interesting way to word it. I think that this is the thing. All of us collectively are still in shock over what happened because 99% of people on the planet know who Will Smith is. And I would say probably 90% of those people are absolutely in love with Will Smith. I mean, he is an icon, and I've had the pleasure of interviewing him and speaking with him and travel to Europe to follow him as he launched one of his movies. Listen, he was kind and gracious and respectful, and I think that that reputation has been untarnished for the most part in his professional life up until this moment. And so I think that his apology certainly was very emotional and also in line with the man who he is and who we see on social media and who we see when he substitutes on Red Table Talk.
But not who we saw Sunday night. You know, that's just the thing. It does seem so out of character. What do you think?
Everybody in the beauty shop is talking about this guy. Beauty shop, barbershop, and everybody is saying that while we love Will Smith, and we still do, and I get it, everybody snaps, but Will Smith now is going to have to face the consequences of his actions. Totally, because while he physically slapped Chris Rock in the face, I keep saying this, that was a slap in the face for the average black man out there that doesn't have the luxury of having the money or the resources and the access that, of course, Will Smith does. Will Smith was a man in Hollywood that reached levels that most black men or women do not obtain there. I mean, he was able to walk around in the A-list circles.
But most people across the board don't obtain.
Well, Capri, what we talk about, he could actually greenlight a project, right? He was the man who could actually say, this is a go. And you talked about it being a slap. It is definitely a slap. I'm going to tell you this, too. I think that we're also forgetting possibly the trauma that Chris is dealing with in this situation, right?
Absolutely.
How many times have we seen this video play over and over and over? I can't imagine a situation, and the memes. I can't imagine a situation where we would allow a victim of an assault of any other kind where we would replay that over and over. I think that there's a bit of deference that is required even when we continue to talk about this. It's one of those situations where we all know that Will Smith has spent a great amount of time crafting an image that has been extremely family-friendly until now. Adrienne, I know that you've worked with Oprah in the past, and I remember Oprah saying once that all a situation like this does is show who you really are. You know, and I think that it's unfortunate. I think that all of the crafting in the world can't mask if you're a person who blows up in a situation like this, because I do believe.
But I think, does it show who he really is, though? Because that's, I think, why this is getting so much talk. I mean, obviously, you know, anybody gets slapped at the Oscars, I think we would be talking about it. But a lot of that is because it is coming from a person who does not have this reputation. Right. So to say that, how you react, he has never reacted to this before. And people make jokes about Will and Jada's marriage or about Will and Jada all the time. I mean, they're constantly the subject of talks. People talk about their marriage. People talk about many, like we all know a lot of business of the Smiths. Go ahead, Capri, go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry. Just because I know this is a very, this is a topic that I think we're all very, passionate about. Everyone's talking about. So the one person that no one has mentioned is Jada Pinkett Smith. This reaction, was about her, was about something that was said about her that was supposed to be a joke, that was derogatory because she has alopecia, which is an autoimmune disease. And I think that this, not only brings up, some of these, racial dynamics, which has been mentioned and is very important, but it is also bringing up, I think, some of these gender issues too, that, no one is talking about the fact that Jada Pinkett Smith does not necessarily need her husband to defend her, and certainly not physically assault someone either. And so if she wanted to have a conversation with Chris Rock, saying she was offended. She certainly has the capability of doing that, and probably doing it in a much more reasonable, rational, and mature manner than what we saw her husband do. And so that's, I think, just one part of a very complex, story that we're seeing with this Will Smith
Capri, speaking of that, Jada has released a statement kind of alluding to, healing needs to happen, which obviously it does. I think healing on everyone's part in this situation. Obviously, we know that she is the host of Red Table Talk on Facebook. So is this possibly being exploited? I hate to even use that word because she still was the victim of a joke. She still was the victim of a joke, though. Let's not forget that. She didn't ask to be part of that we know of.
Right.
What do you mean exploited?
Is she exploiting this situation potentially, alluding to this conversation that will happen on her very huge platform?
Let me tell you this. She's not so offended that she will just put this behind her and move on. She will find a way to share her pain on Red Table Talk and hold everyone's hand. Tears will be shed. We will fall into it because this is what we do. We all know that Jada's not going to miss an opportunity.
I feel like that. You sound like you say as if it's going to be insincere.
I don't doubt that they want this to be a successful apology. I'm not negating, like Adrienne said earlier, I won't purport to know what they're thinking.
Right.
But what I will say is this, they will not miss an opportunity to put this on Red Table Talk. I think that we know this is going to happen.
Of course, Adrienne.
Can I say something? I think that there are people watching who are trying to play back what happened in their mind, because we're seeing this video of him being slapped, Chris Rock being slapped on a loop. And it's like kind of watching a bad movie where you want to pretend that it could end differently. And I would think that there are some people watching even our conversation at home thinking, how could this have stopped? Well, security didn't jump on the stage.
Yeah.
There are some people who think that the only person in that room who was empowered to prevent this was Jada. Because a man who would get up on the night of his life, on the night of his career, and go to, again, by his own admission, defend his bride from being personally harassed or harangued by a comedian, she could have reached out. Again, I think this is something that people
I feel like now we're putting the onus on Jada as if she's taking responsibility for it.
We're not doing anything. I'm telling you, when I think about these things, I'm thinking, what are people at home imagining?
Right. And he made a split-second decision. She can't read his mind. She can't read his mind and stop him.
No, but she knows him better than anybody else. And she is a wife, and she is watching.
Well, she did not go to console him after it happened, wasn't it? Denzel, Bradley.
No, they went to a party. But I think what happens is, too, I think the eye rolling told the story, and I think it was a trigger for a lot of Black women, because, of course, we've been told since we were little girls that our hair is ugly, that it's shameful, that it's something wrong with our hair. So for her to have to publicly, and this has been a public conversation that she's had about alopecia. And I think we all know someone that deals with this, and we know, our crown is everything. Let me just throw mine around. But it's
throw that crown around, Darlene.
We identify by that. So it was triggering for a lot of women. So could, in that moment, Jada have looked at her husband and said, honey, that hurts. Don't do, stop what you're doing. Don't go up there and defend me.
Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.